The information provided is not a substitute for legal and other professional advice where the facts and circumstances warrant. People should always consult their own legal or other professional advisors and discuss the facts and circumstances that apply to their specific circumstances. The information shared on Ask the Landlord is for educational purposes only.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Ask the Landlord with your favorite landlord, Albert Dweck. I'm Melissa. I'm one of Albert's producers and a former New York City renter. Together, we're going to be asking this landlord some questions. Albert, here's my question today. Halloween just passed, and we're approaching the beloved holiday season. What is the best way to approach my landlord about what holiday decorations I can put up? For example, can I hang holiday lights on my fire escape or my windows?
That's a great question. Hi, Melissa.
Hey.
And I do appreciate that people want to be festive and celebrate. And what I do notice about what you're saying is people are feeling pride about where they live and they want to make it nice and decorate. And I think that's a wonderful place to come from. And I want to redirect the question a little bit, and then first I want to deal with safety, and then we'll talk about kind of outside the apartment rules. One thing that I recall just making sure that everything is safe from a fire perspective or whatever. And some people, at this time of year, light candles. They have candles on their tree and things like that. So make sure that, and there's Hanukkah candles people leave unattended sometimes, and those have caused fires and whatnot. So I think it's important to not create a situation that's going to be dangerous. Certainly unattended or even for a short time. So make sure that whatever you are doing, it's safe, and it's not going to cause a fire or any kind of fire hazard, right? So that's really important. So make sure it's safe, and then it's great too that you're saying, hey, can I ask my landlord about what I can put up or whatever? I think most landlords will be open and appreciative to someone that asks that question, because I think it only shows pride of ownership and enhances the building, as long as it's put up and taken down in some time, and also has some thought and care with respect to it. So don't forget, it's not your own house, that you're dealing with. It's an apartment within a community of people, and you want to make sure that you're doing something that's in consideration of your neighbors, and the owners of the building, and safety again, and convenience of everyone. So very often people have holidays. I have holidays, and it doesn't mean that everyone has a holiday. So you have to also be respectful of other people's spaces and things like that. So that's the second rule, I think, is after being safe is being respectful of your neighbors, and especially in a situation where you're in an apartment building or something like that. Obviously you're not going to block any exits. That's an important thing also. Like if you're going to speak to your landlord, you say, look, I'm going to do this. I'd like to do this. I'd like to put it here. I'm going to make sure that it's kept neat and it looks nice, and it's not going to interfere with people's means of egress. So that's important to also as a part of the safety. But and then also that here I'm going to take it down by X date, so that everyone knows that what it's for. So it's beautiful to do, and to make sure that it's like not Christmas in July, which is some people celebrate, but by buying things in advance, but not putting them up all year round.
Right.
Does that?
Yeah, something you just said. You just said a term that I would like you to define. What does means of egress mean?
Right. So usually when you're in an apartment, and I don't know for anyone that's been on an airplane, you sit down, they tell you, oh, you know where your exits are. You've seen that. So that like if anything ever happens, you know where your closest exit is and what you're going to do in case of an emergency. And that's a great uh, segue. Is that in your home, your apartment, you should always think about, how do I exit this building in case of an emergency? We'll talk about a fire first and then other kinds of emergencies, but what happens if, there's a fire? What happens if there's a fire in my kitchen? What do I do? Do I have what to take care of that with? Where do I go? What if there's a fire in the hallway? What if I have to go out my window? How do I get down the fire escape? You may not do it physically, but you may have a plan for how to evacuate. So a means of egress means um, ways to leave and enter, simply. So if you're blocking someone's way out of the building with something that you've done, it's fine now, if, maybe they could squeeze around it, but what if someone's disabled and has a wheelchair and can't get around what you put out there or something like that? So, those are things or if some you're blocking someone's access to a fire exit or something like that. That's really when you discuss those kind of things. So you just want to make sure you're being safe and you're not um, causing any problems. Because what happens when if there's an emergency, you're just focused on getting out of the building, and you want to get out as quickly and as safely as possible. And if you have stuff in the way that you have to navigate, in addition to the thing that's making you leave the building, that becomes a little difficult. So that, and I think it was an appropriate place for you to ask the question, because also, like, if you're going to put a pumpkin in the hallway, let's say, or a tree in the hallway or whatever, you want to just be cognizant of, hey, am I blocking anything? Am I doing anything like that?
Right. So be mindful if there's like a balloon arch and it starts to collapse, take it down. It's time.
True.
Right. So holidays could be a dangerous time. They're fun and all, but so we have fun and most importantly, be safe.
That's right. Be safe. And then make sure that when you do put decorations, you put them in a way that's in a place they're allowed to be put, that you can access. So I know people want sometimes to decorate their fire escapes. And those are really only meant for emergencies. If I know you used to live in the city, and like the rest of us who do, those fire escapes they're not balconies. They're not made for hanging out on or being there. They're just made for an emergency. And you you want to be careful, especially when you do that. And it may be okay with your landlord to put something on the fire escape. I really don't think so. When we get in like insurance inspections as landlords, we often have to make sure that the fire escapes are clear, and that there's like nothing on them. So I would tend to avoid that kind of a thing, like putting something on the fire escape. Um, one, because it impedes someone's ability to exit the building, and two, the fire escapes really aren't made for people to go out and hang out on them and do stuff. So be careful with that stuff. It's not made for that.
So my plants on my fire escape, my garden was not a good idea.
Whoops.
Well,
I'm sure if until someone found out about them, they'd be okay.
No, it's true. They are meant for escaping a fire.
Yeah, and then look, I was in a building where we lived, and we were renting, and everyone put out like Halloween stuff, and it was interesting. Like it became like when you walk down the hallway, you had to avoid everyone's Halloween decorations outside their door. So like you would have to like literally move around these decorations. And like you could fall down, and then not all of them were like um, the same. Like some of them had their kids do it. So like there's some. It wasn't as controlled as it could have been, and then the building uh, said, "Oh, we're going to have to. No one's allowed to do anything like this now because it's out of control."
Right. I think this brings us to a good point of like knowing your neighbors in any circumstance. It involves everything. It affects it
Yeah, and I
all.
and I think and I think and I, as you mention this, uh, I think this comes back to some of the things we talked about in earlier episodes, where a landlord could maybe engage. I think it should engage the residents of the community and say, "Hey, we want to do something as a building for Christmas. Here's what I'm going to do. I'll put a tree. I'll do some decorations. Let's all contribute to that so it looks nice. I'll put them up at this time. I'll take them down at this time. If you guys want to get involved, great. If you want to do something on your front door, you can do this and this. These are acceptable. Obviously, be careful with what you're with the candles, etc., in your house. But this way, there's as a landlord, you're leaning into the pride of ownership that people have also, and and the building looks nice that people care about doing that. I think that's a beautiful thing. It would be nice also to maybe have like a building wide, I like some charity work. That's good kind of place to we put toys for people that aren't, or something like that. But um, these are there's an opportunity there to get into the holiday/Christmas spirit, to know your neighbors, get together with the landlord, come up with something. Now, I'm going to say something from my perspective. I'm a busy guy, right? And I'm not going to every building and saying, "Oh, let's put up a Christmas tree," and I want to, like I should. Um, but if the residents came to me and said, "Hey, could we do this? Could we do that? Could you contribute to it?" I would, because it's so nice. Like, so I think that's something that I would appreciate, and I'm sure that the landlords would appreciate if the residents would engage the landlord in some kind of discussion about, "Hey, let's do something," you know,
That's a
for
great idea. I
Christmas.
think all tenants should ask their landlords for Christmas trees in the lobbies along with wrapped real presents under the tree.
Melissa, we're going to write that down.
That would be remarkable.
Remarkable.
All right. I think you explained it. We touched on, what decorations aren't the best ideas for your apartment, what you should know your neighbors, fire escapes, lights, candles. And then lastly, when do we need to take down these decorations? I know there's the unwritten rule of like, if you see lights in February, like what's wrong with these people? So, what's your take on that? When do holiday decorations need to come down?
My wife tells me this, generally, um, it's a good rule. If you have to ask, probably not a good idea.
Right.
So, meaning, I mean, what do you think, Melissa?
I mean, I think I didn't really grow up with that many decorations, but I would think the rule would be like New Year's, like
New
maybe
Year's.
January 7th, maybe.
Yeah, yeah. I think that makes sense.
Yeah.
You know, um, and then you could get. I have a friend who's a landlord, and he taking this to another level, which is another good suggestion. Is you could do plantings and different decorations for each season, and different. Um, there are more holidays just than Christmas, so you can do different things throughout the year. You could honor the troops. You could do uh, July 4th. Memorial Day. There's all kinds of stuff. So there's Mother's Day. You could plant flowers. There's different things to do. So I encourage, maybe the building or can, the residents can get together with the landlord and come up with like a decorative program where, they're getting involved in some collaborative beautification.
Honestly, do you think landlords would be annoyed if their tenants approach them about this?
No,
Not at all.
I
Okay.
think. What do you? I mean, I'm thinking about it now. I think it'd be
Yeah,
wonderful.
that's
But
great.
when you go to the landlord, um, I think in any case, always like we said before, to be effective, you want to make an offer. Say, how about we do this? But you're not saying to the landlord, you do it, but how? I'd like to do this.
Right.
Would you like to contribute to it? Do you have anyone that could help out? What do you think? Here's my design. Don't. I mean, I appreciate the idea, but don't just give me the idea. Like
Right.
I want to do it, contribute it with you. So I think it's collaborative to the extent it's collaborative. I think that's the offer to make.
Right. And then talk about how the execution comes about. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's beautiful. Beautiful.
All right. I think this is great. I think this is giving us a lot of insight into the holiday season coming up. And it's a jolly time of the year and we're all excited. This is the start, Halloween. So
Yeah.
let's go. Happy holidays.
Yeah. Thank you. Happy holidays.
For more episodes, please subscribe to Ask the Landlord on your favorite podcast platform. We'd appreciate it if you left a review on Apple Podcasts. If you'd like to watch the show, check out our Ask the Landlord YouTube channel. If you have a question for Albert, feel free to contact him on Instagram at Ask the Landlord and check out his TikTok at Ask the Landlord. Bridging the gap between landlords and tenants, this has been Ask the Landlord. Thanks for listening.